This is a special episode where Startup Podcast reacts to Philippine Startup Week 2021. For this episode, mag-i-interview tayo ng mga professionals na nag-attend ng Philippine Startup Week 2021 which is brought to us by DOST, DTI, DICT, and Kubo Innovation Hub and the Philippine Startup community just last week. So we will hear first ano yung events na pinuntahan nila at anong natutunan or na-realize nila in relation to their profession. And second, what they think about the startup industry in the Philippines. So let's start. So introduce muna natin ang ating mga reactors. So first, we have Andrei. She's a BS Industrial Engineering graduate and currently an instructor in UP Diliman.
Hi! Hello.
Second, we have Erwin. He's an MS Energy Engineering graduate in UP Diliman and process engineer in analog devices.
Good evening, everyone.
Third, we have Patrick and Lois. Later, she will be joining us. They're husband and wife. They're both Y Combinator startup school graduates and self-taught designers and developers. Say hi.
Hello. So, my wife right now is attending to our toddler. Sorry about that.
Of course. So, syempre, dito sa Startup Podcast, we're a family. So, we also support and attend to our family members. And me, I'm Janni, Startup Podcast lead creator. And my profession is, I actually also teach. I'm a senior lecturer in UP Diliman. Okay? So, start na tayo sa ating interview. Wow. So, i-share lang isa-isa ano yung event na pinuntahan and anong natutunan or na-realize and maybe relate sa ating profession. So, let's start, syempre, with Andrei. Saan ba si Andrei?
Hi! Yes. Mag-share na ako.
Yeah,
okay. I attended a few events since the Philippine Startup Week, but I picked yung top 2 na favorites ko, yung closer to my heart. The first one I'd like to share is the talk that was moderated by Edukasyon.ph. So basically, they pooled speakers to talk about the future of EdTech in the Philippines. So basically, in a nutshell, EdTech is the technology education, or basically it revolves around implementing technologies that will better yung performance ng students in the classroom setting or promote a more individualized learning approach and or help yung mga instructors, yung handlers ng classes to better manage yung mga students and yung class in general. So yung mga students ay yung mga speakers nila dun sa event talked about the general scope of EdTech. So some of them shared about the hardships that they experienced in learning technology on their own. And right now in the startups that they're working on, they're trying to bridge that gap para hindi na ma-experience ng ibang tao yung same hardships that they experienced. So basically what they wanted to share is that we need to make technology more accessible and that we need to realize that technology has to be better integrated to education. Tapos, they ended the lecture, the talk, with featuring one speaker. I love her, she's my favorite. Professor Rodrigo from Ateneo de Manila University. So she's from the Ateneo Laboratory for Learning Sciences. And basically, she shared that the reason why we want to make technology more available and integrate that with education is because it expands the possibility for instructors, for teachers to inculcate yung mga lessons sa mga students nila. So I actually recall parang meron akong class nung high school. Elective lang siya on life sciences or something like that. It's like parang a deeper appreciation of biology na for some people it's very intimidating, pero yung teacher namin at the end of the course, sabi niya na up to you kung paano nyo i-explore yung pag-implement or pag-share sa akin na pinatutunan kayo from the class. So a lot of my classmates looked into mga websites, pag-create ng mga websites para ma-share yung learnings nila. Merong gumawa ng mga parang blog series, whatever. Tapos kami gumawa kami ng storybook. I think search niyo pa siya online. Ang pangalan, Peter the Pet Lover. So, through these creative channels, napakita namin na yung appreciation namin of the topics through technology, nagkaroon pa ng better ways para ma-capture namin yung learnings from the class. So basically, yung gist na nakuha ko from the talk is that we need to invest, the government needs to invest in integrating technology at a very early stage sa mga tao, making it more accessible, more inclusive. Kasi later on, magagamit siya not just of the students but educators in enriching yung educational experience para sa mga bata and make learning fun again. Actually, si Professor Rodrigo also shared yung mga projects nila dun sa lab. Sabi nila na parang one way to reach out to students para mas ma-appreciate nila yung lessons is through making educational games. So may pinakita siya na educational game na kaya actually natin ma-download sa phone or sa computers natin. And through these educational games, natuturuan mo yung mga bata ng mas advanced na topics na otherwise may intimidate sila learning about. So what she shared was a specific game that teaches you about the Sustainable Development Goals na parang situational game siya, very interactive, tapos may mga bite-sized na trivia and other information na sinashare along the way. So it was very insightful and very close to my heart. Parang doon ko na-appreciate na, itong pandemic, it made us realize na sobrang laki ng gap. Ang dami pa nating lacking in terms of integrating technology in our context. And once ma-enrich natin yung part na yun, ma-close natin yung gap, mas malaki pa yung kayang maging potential ng education and yung maging influence ng mga teachers for towards something positive dun sa mga students natin. So, ayun. That's the first talk I'd like to share.
Thank you for that sharing, Andrei. Actually, I agree na kailangan gawing mas inclusive and mas engaging ang education. And with technology, we can do that. That's also what Startup Podcast is trying to do, extending that learning to other media. So, Erwin, can you share naman one of the events that you attended to?
So the first event that I attended was entitled Lessons Learned as a Late Entrant by tawk.to. So, ang story nito is they started by addressing yung unsatisfactory live chat software na na-experience ng mga customers ng competitors nila. So they considered themselves as a late entrant because they started in 2013. Tapos yung mga kalaban nila was founded in 2006. So they were 7 years late. But despite that, they gave a presentation of how they fared against their competitors. So yung competitors kasi nila may mga features na hindi na ma-maximize ng mga customers nila dahil per seat yung pricing. They emphasize yung parang pricing nila compared sa mga kalaban nila. Sa kalaban nila per seat, yung kanila $1 per hour chat pag may chat assistant ka, gano'n. Pero yung software na ginagamit sa kanila was for free because they believe na everyone should have equal access to opportunity. So they monetize when tatanggalin yung ads nila, yung tawk.to brand na watermark, doon lang sila nagcha-charge. Pero yung utility ng software, they offer it for free to their customers. So yung nagkaroon din sila ng mga videos ng mga stakeholders nila, yung mga customers nila like UANP. Yung UANP is a University of Asia and the Pacific. Ginagamit daw nila yung chat service na to, lalo na for inquiries dun sa college nila. And since pandemic nga din, so minimize yung face-to-face interaction. So na-maximize nila yung use. Tsaka ang kagandahan daw dito, pag may queries sa kanila, hindi na na-delay. Unlike sa usual na email queries, di ba, ang tagal ng sagot. Doon daw, dahil may chat assistant sila, parang pagkatanong pala ng mga customers sila na nasasagot na kaagad yung query. And magandang learning ko dito was parang kasi napaka-fast-paced na ng ano natin ngayon, di ba? Ng world natin na alam mo yun, pagka slow ka parang napag-iiwanan ka, gano'n. And yet sila na late entrant, ang parang nagdo-dominate nila yung ano eh. Parang kahit na sobrang young pa ng company nila, I think they had 20% ng market share na. Tapos ayun. Ang sabi pa nilang quote was being late to the market gives a helicopter view of what and what does not work. So parang naano mo na, diba? Na-survey mo na yung landscape. So wala nang trial and error, ganun. And you can improve what yung mga nagawa ng mga nauna sa'yo. Ayun.
Interesting. Ang ganda ng quote na yun. I'm not sure, maybe Patrick can also give his thoughts about that. Patrick and Lois, I'd also want to hear your... Pero yeah, Talk.to, by the way, sila yung chatbot partner ng Philippine Startup Week 2021. So sila yung nakikita nating chatbot there for help. So thank you for that, Erwin. So Patrick and Lois, so can you share naman, or maybe you can also react to their sharings?
So, well, si Andrei kanina, when she was talking about like really trying to synthesize, like not just regurgitate information, but to really synthesize something in your own words. Like, I feel like that's really the most effective way to learn. And parang sobrang natuwa ako dun sa example from high school, no? And with Erwin naman, yung kanina, yung like sort of like in chess, right? You have a first mover advantage. But here you're talking exactly about the opposite of like a later mover advantage, wherein you can see what has been done, what has been tried, what doesn't work. And it's really like one of the canonical examples that we always like hear about is like PayPal. Like, they weren't the first email payment system, but they're in a good position to sort of be the last. Like, they started acquiring all the other parang payment solutions na parang kasi nakita nila lahat ng hindi gumagana. Tapos pati yung Google, ganon. Like, hindi naman sila yung first search engine. I just wasn't able to use the product that is being described. Pero I agree with the principles na if at least in the startup world, it seems that being the first mover is really a disadvantage. And parang there's no shame in parang nangungupya ka eh. Pag nakita mo nung ano yung ginawa ng ibang magiging competitor mo dapat, tapos sasabihin mo, okay, these are the things that work. Gagayahin lang namin. Wala tayong shame in copying what works and then discarding what doesn't work. So that's really that quote speaks to my heart.
You can share also the event na pinuntahan niyo. Okay, Lois.
Sa akin lang, to add lang doon na
sure.
Naalala ko kasi yung quote nung pandemic na sinabi ni Vico na okay lang magkopyahan kasi hindi naman parang nagtutulungan naman tayo. Pero in the startup world, parang kailangan talaga alam mo kung ano yung parang lagi ka pa rin on your feet, mauna ka or whatever. Kasi hindi pa kayo mauna ka, ibig sabihin hindi na parang ikaw na lagi yung may best idea. So kailangan parang lagi pa rin nakikinig sa users. So parang balik lang dun sa basics na listen to your users and do what's being needed.
Yeah.
Tapos sharing lang dun sa yung pinanood ko kasi hindi ko natapos. Disclaimer. Kasi nga, this. So, yung no-code. Kasi na-mention ni Janni kanina na developers, freelancers kami ngayon. Mostly, yung ginagawa lang talaga namin is no-code. Pero, ang advantage ko kasi, programmer ako. Tapos, nag-no-code ako. Tapos, yung maganda kasi doon, alam ko kung bali developer ako, tapos yung mga nag-speak doon, sila yung mga founders. So, in a way, sila yung nagiging customers ko. Tapos, sobrang nakakatuwang panoorin kasi hindi sila yung usual kong nagiging customers. Kasi sila yung mga founders na willing silang matuto ng iba't ibang mga bagay para sila mismo yung gagawa ng tech nila. Which is what really no-code was made for. Pero yung mga nagiging clients ko kasi, sila yung mga founders na ayaw nilang pag-aralan na yung mga platforms. So parang i-hire nila ako. Ako yung gagawa ng website nila. Ako yung gagawa ng halos yung na-discuss din kasi doon yung UX person siya, designer, tapos meron ding designer. Tapos ako as a freelancer, ginagawa ko kasi lahat ng yun. Kasi parang gagawin ko from start to finish. So minsan, lalapit lang sila with an idea sa akin. So nung napapakinggan ko talaga sila, na-amaze ako sa kanila kasi hindi ganun yung mga naging clients ko. Yung mga clients ko, parang may idea lang sila, tapos sasabihin, parang ipipitch nila sa akin, tapos gagawin ko yung buong idea nila. Tapos, pati yung use cases, pati yung target users, parang ganun-ganon. Ako yung nagde-design. So, parang all around. Tapos, sila, as in, inaral nila iba't ibang stacks, iba't ibang no-code platforms to build their own para magamit ng company nila. So, ayun, sobrang nakakatuwa yung mga ganong kinds of founders. Kasi willing silang maging alamin din talaga yung mga ginagamit nilang tools. Kasi hindi lang sila yung basta-bastang mag-hire ng katulad ko.
Yeah.
Ayun.
Thank you for that, Lois. Actually, I also attended to that event. I also listened to it. And maybe ang takeaway ko nga dun na one of the speakers said that with no code, with their advocacy na parang they're developing platforms and not them, but the community, platforms na low code, no code, kumbaga drag and drop na lang, 'di ba? More of like that. It gives more effort and energy for the startup or for companies to think of other aspects like in product design, in user interface, kumbaga yung code na lilesen. Kasi come to think of it, hindi naman ganun kadali mag-code for some. Maybe for Patrick and Lois madali or something. Pero for most of us, medyo steep yung learning curve. So I think then, ang kinaganda ng movement nila is parang it exponentiates yung growth ng development, product development. Kasi kung nililesen nga yung effort to do that program, to type in that programs, yeah, it can really grow. Kumbaga, mas marami rin kaya gumawa, kumbaga.
Pero, ayun, gusto lang ding in-note na kahit anong platform yon, kahit na no yan or whatever, mataas talaga yung learning curve. Tapos, kailangan nandun pa rin talaga yung willingness to learn, and may, like, yung everyday naman natin, may coding in a way na parang pati yung pag-turn on, paggamit ng washing machine, yung mismong pag-on mo, tsaka pag-set mo na 30 minutes to dry or 30 minutes to wash, programming na yon. So parang ganun lang din yung coding platforms. Plus, you just need to learn which parang tools to use, paano sila gagamitin, paano mo sila isa-stack together para mabuo mo yung service na gusto mong gawin. Na sobrang nakaka-intimidate nga sila actually. Kasi isa lang yung ginagamit ko. So, ginagamit ko Bubble.io. Mas considered siya, I think, na low code than no code. Kasi parang kailangan may knowledge ka pa rin in programming to be able to use the platform. Pagka wala, medyo mahirap talagang aralin. Pero yung ibang platform kasi, as in talagang drag and drop, tapos parang modules na siya na malalaki na parang ilalagay mo na lang tapos gagana na siya. Tapos, ayun, parang may some kind of learning pa rin na kailangan intindihin. Hindi mo pa rin pwedeng skip lang yung tutorials. Kailangan mo pa rin daanan yon para ma-build mo yung gusto mong i-build.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay, so
to Lois's point earlier, yung kailangan mo pa rin makipag-usap sa she was actually commenting on Erwin's the code. Pero yung talking to users, the thing about no code that really helped us when we were building our startup, which is currently on hiatus, was that mabilis mag-iterate. Like, ako kakausapin ko yung prospective client. And then, sabihin ko, so habang kausap ko, parang mag-list kami ng okay, what do you think lacks? What do you think does the product lack? Or is there any feature you'd like? And then we take a recess, like a 5-minute, 10-minute recess. yung iba magsi-CR, ganyan. Tapos ako, tatawagan ko si Lois. Sabi ko, hey, the user wants this. Tapos, by the end of the recess, na-implement niya na yung feature. Tapos sabi ko, alright, so we have this now. Tapos, so, like, sobrang bilis. Like, so I was in charge of talking to users, and she was in charge of building the product. And so, this is our child, by the way, Clara. Say hello. So the no code is really useful for founders to iterate really quickly. Like, you never come up with a perfect product from the get-go. You have to iterate quickly, and the no code really, like what I can build in Ruby on Rails in 3 weeks, Lois can do in an afternoon, right? And so parang sobrang lumit yung time to iterate, and that's really one of the advantages of no code. And so to talk about the event I attended.
Sige. Maybe sa next iteration natin yung isa pang event. Okay
sure.
Ba? Okay,
Okay.
Okay, sige. Kasi mag-share din naman ng event. So, yung event na pinuntahan ko is InnovNation by DICT. So, mini conference siya na held and organized by DICT. So, basically, they just want to share more about what their initiatives are. Kasi isa ang DICT sa pasimuno or sa talagang nag-spearhead ng growth ng startup ecosystem sa Pilipinas. Actually, nung na-sign nga yung Innovative Startup Act ng 2019, DICT in partnership with DOST and DTI and part din si Kubo Innovation Hub, they're really leading yung growth ng startup industry sa Pilipinas. Pero for me, ang pinakamagandang nangyayari dito with DICT and in their programs is yung pagiging inclusive. For one, they really have initiatives for encouraging youth and students to create startups. They have this panel discussion called From School to Startup, where student to startup founders, they really share their experiences na nung college pa lang sila, this is what they've done, and this is how they built their startups from there. And second event nila there is showcasing innovation in the countryside, wherein startups in Cagayan de Oro, Davao City, Cebu City, and Baguio City, they really showcased and they really just wanted to show na hindi lang sa Metro Manila nangyayari yung booming ecosystem, sa other parts din ng Pilipinas. And another thing na parang linilid din ng DICT is yung Digital Startup Development and Acceleration Program. Basically, kasi para magkaroon ng booming startup ecosystem, kailangan natin ng access to internet basically. Which basically inter-accessibility ng buong Pilipinas. Kasama dyan yung cybersecurity, digital economy, digital education nga according to Andrei and yung event na pinanood niya, EdTech. Yeah, so DICT in partnership with DTI and DOST and with their program na ang pangalan ay Philippine Startup Development Program. It's actually a package really to grow the Philippine startup industry. Yeah, so I just want to emphasize that kasi ang Philippine Startup Week 2021 ay organized by the 3 government agencies and 3 government agencies and 1 public-private partnership, DICT, DOST, DTI, and Kubo Innovation Hub. So, segue lang yun actually. So, let's go with our next sharing, Andrei.
Siguro, just to add to that, no? Nag-sit in din ako dun sa talk ng FEU, yung FITC. And although hindi siya yung to talk about the next, I just want to emphasize na I really admire the programs that they're establishing in FITC, and they're really pioneering yung innovation education in the Philippines. In the talk, they mentioned that they're the first institution to come up with an innovation undergrad program. Tapos that among other na incubation programs nila and mga programs para mas ma-encourage yung mga students nila para mag-take up or mag-pursue ng startup career or to apply for startups instead of going dun sa mga usual corporate career. So that's really admirable, and it's nice to see that kind of progress, especially in the academe, embracing that kind of a shift already in the possible career tracks of students. Kasi I'd like to say na yung mga universities, mga institutions right now, parang medyo traditional pa rin in a sense na gusto nila dun sa usual tracks na mag-engineer ka, magiging doctor or whatever, and have to attend university to be a professional and go in that career track. But now, they are acknowledging the fact na hindi lang yun yung possible avenues for you to pursue after school. So yun lang, gusto ko lang i-mention. Anyway, so on to the second talk that I'd like to talk about. Yung isa ko pang napanood na gusto kong i-share was a talk by Komunidad. So they are a startup that makes use of weather information and environmental intelligence for different purposes sa Asia. So usually, pag meron kang, parang when innovation comes to mind, parang ang usual natin na iisip is better technology or i-expand mo yung use niya or gagawin mo siya, magdadagdag ka ng mga features, etc. na before hindi ginagamit. This time, yung in-advocate for ni Komunidad is making use of data that's already there, very abundant, and use it in a more everyday use. So yung binigay niyang examples, parang yung isa for like airline industry, and yung isa nagagamitin ng mga barangay officials, LGU officials, ganyan. So yung meteorological data na nagagather nila, sobrang dami nilang kinukuhang information, say about yung mga rain forecasts, mga lightning forecasts, wind, even heat index, air quality index, etc. Tapos ang gumagamit lang nito, more likely is yung mga airline industries that use this information to decide flight schedules, etc. Tapos naisip nila na hindi lang naman yung mga malalaking industries na yun yung makikinabang sa ganitong data. Why not bring this to the level of LGUs, maybe even barangay officials? Kasi kahit sila, magamit nila yung ganong information. So, yung day-to-day use niya, tipo, magagamit mo para malaman mo if kailangan mo magdala ng payong sa kung saan ka man pupunta, or kailangan mo bang i-cancel yung event mo kasi outdoors siya gagawin in consideration of yung mga weather forecasts, etc. Or if you're a barangay official or an LG representative in a locality na more about like fishery or agriculture, yung kabuhay, yung livelihood nyo dun sa area na yun, that would really factor in dun sa mga decision-making na gagawin ng municipality. So, yung mga ganong more household uses of that information, yung gustong i-take advantage ng komunidad kasi hindi pa siya na-apply dun sa ganong context. Nasayang naman kasi the data is already there. So, ang pinapropose nila is for government to invest yung dissemination channels para makascade yung ganong information to LGUs and even local officials in a timely manner. I remember na parang merong earthquake na nangyari not long ago, parang mga 1 month ago. Madaling araw siya nangyari. Tapos na-receive ko yung text, di ba, MDRRMC texts you. I received it the day after. Parang, I know there was an earthquake. So sana...
Check mo sa Facebook.
Yeah, sa Facebook or sa Twitter mo siya makikita. So sana, maging ganun din ka-efficient.
Twitter talaga, di ba? Pag lumindol, tas hindi ka sure.
Hindi, parang kailangan ko bang mag-evacuate ka agad? Or saan ako pupunta, di ba? Para malalaman mo kung ano yung parang mag-guiding decision-making mo. That should have been disseminated to you in a more timely manner. Na dapat doon nag-invest yung government kasi the data is already there. Ang kulang na lang is yung infrastructure to make those announcements more timely. Na minsan, mas life or death na yung pinag-uusapan doon, hindi lang siya yung magdadala ba ako ng payong pagpunta ko dito sa location na to. It's more of yung magkakaroon ba ng risk for flooding, etc., etc. So ayun, it's just really interesting. And actually, meron silang na-mention na sa Mandaluyong and sa Taguig, ini-implement na siya dun sa locality na yun. And even in Taguig, they have mosquito behavior activity predictors. Kasi nakita nila na yung weather heavily predicts yung activity ng mga mosquitoes. Especially sa panahon ngayon na usong-uso yung dengue, ganyan. yung mga localities would really benefit from that information. So it's a nice way of expanding yung possible uses ng data na nandun naman, kailangan lang natin i-maximize yung uses niya.
Interesting. Now ko lang fully na-gets yung ginagawa ng komunidad. Thank you for that, Andrei. Very wonderful explanation. Pwede ka nang mag-apply. Joke lang.
Oo, pwede naman akong endorser ng komunidad.
Okay, thank you for that, Erwin. So you can share naman about the next event that you've attended.
Yeah, so my next event was Youth in Energy, Voices from the Future of the Tech Energy Sector. This was moderated by New Energy Nexus, which is an international company that started in California in 2004. So they help clean energy entrepreneurs, and they have a goal of achieving 100% clean energy economy. So this talk had 3 speakers. First was Nick Salomon of Ingeniero.org. So this startup noticed that there has been low retention rates of engineering students in universities, and these students also lack business and entrepreneurial skills and lack technological innovation. So their mission was to empower engineers and promote innovation. So how do they do it? They hold events such as the Re-Engineer 2021, which features career development and future skills presented to the students. And they also held inventors and investors technological fair. They also host they also have an FB page, a Facebook group, and a YouTube channel wherein they discuss content such as the different types of renewable energy, such as wind energy, hydropower fundamentals, solar energy, and as well as nuclear energy. So they also mentor the students as to achieve their goal of improving the numbers of engineering students in the universities. And as for the second speaker, he was Cesar Estrada of Energy Literacy PH. So this startup aims to address the energy literacy in the country. So they develop infographics, easy to process infographics that relate to energy, such as the how much energy are we consuming, and how to save energy, how to reduce energy wastage. And they also characterize the so-called energy literacy using 3 components. So first component is knowledge, which is the technological know-how regarding energy. And then the second attribute is attitude, which is the sensitivity to urgency. So this is with regards to the climate, the global warming, and climate change that's happening. And the third and last one is the behavior, which means informed decisions to life. So behavior is basically your perception on how to conserve energy. So do you turn off the lights at night? Do you keep the faucet running? Do you segregate your garbage? So like that. And when they measured the average energy literacy for Filipinos, they found that Filipinos have low knowledge but high attitude and behavior, which leads to an average
high usage.
Yeah. So hindi pa sila ganun ka-aware with regards to technology. Pero yung sa attitude naman and behavior, ano naman sila? Highly positive naman kasi ramdam naman yung init at pagdadalas ng bagyo na parang off-season na parang naiba na yung nag-migrate na yung when we should feel summer and when we should feel the cold weather. Ayun. So for the last speaker, it was Joshua Miguel Lopez of Reboot.ph, which is a company that started in 2020. By the way, Joshua was my classmate in one of my energy engineering classes. So yeah, kilala ko siya. And his topic was regarding innovation ecosystem. So this was defined as the different actors that interact to produce shared outcomes, like a web of interactions. It is a cross-pollination of ideas between different sectors to spur innovation towards renewable energy that is clean, secure, and accessible. So what he wants to define here was the different sectors acting towards one goal. So kasi I think this was a parang deep dive into the analysis of achieving the goal of 100% renewable energy, which is more than just technology, more than just knowing the types of energy. It involves also yung policies that the governments must enact in order to encourage adoption of such energy, and also the yung adoption din mismo ng consumers na katulad natin. So they also hold events such as the Renewable Energy Camp and Climate and Energy Literacy through various learning channels, and policy advocacy and regional hub development through cross-sectoral collaborations. So I think I can very much relate to these lessons being an energy engineering graduate. So and also my company, Analog Devices, is an active steward for the environment. We even have our own organization, the Green Network. The Green Network is a global group across each branch ng Analog, wherein we organize activities that would help the environment, such as the tree planting, waste segregation, and other programs like plastic waste management for awareness of each of our employees to somehow help battle climate change.
Meron din ba kayong podcast? Renewable Energy Podcast.
Wala.
Anyway, thank you for that, Erwin. I'm really...
Yung podcast na yun.
Si Erwin na mag-start nun. Joke lang. Okay, let's go naman to Patrick. So you can share na the event that you've attended.
Alright. So the event I attended was MAIN, Manila Angel Investors Network. I was really honestly happily surprised about what ended up being their topic. It wasn't just about fundraising. It was something really close to my heart, which is including more female members to the startup ecosystem. So whether it be founders, investors, designers, engineers, customers. And firsthand, I've experienced the main benefit here is that when working with Lois, I became more compassionate about okay, I could have a mission and a vision for the company, but then she will really try to operationalize it and think about the use cases. Sino ba yung target market natin? Ano ba yung problem nila? Are you really solving their problem? Parang yun yung mga bagay na madaling may overlook. You can start a startup as a man, I guess, and just think, all right, I'll conquer the world. Pero pwedeng your feet are not on the ground. At least that was how it is from my experience. I can't speak for all men out there, but so you benefit here is became the startup, and me and the startup became more compassionate due to the influence of Lois, more empathetic to ano yung on the ground problems, tsaka yung user experience. Tapos this was a panel of 5 people, 3 women and 2 men. Tina from Avaya, Queen B, who is the executive director of MAIN, Mel from One Export, CEO and co-founder of One Export, and then Paolo from Delgado Brothers, and EJ Arboleda from Taxumo. And among all of them, it's only EJ who I actually met in person so far. And I met him and his wife, Ginger, and co-founder niya. Then sa Taxumo, they help you process your taxes faster. And it's something we use also as freelancers. And so yung topic ni EJ that really impacted me was he spoke about a tactical manner na I think his wife also discusses every now and then, as yung leaning in, men leaning in at home and women leaning in at work. And kasi parang the unfair question that's always asked to women is, how do you balance life and work, family and work? But then as a man, you never hear that, right? And so everybody should actually call this out when you see this double standard and start saying, oh, well, as a man, you have to be a father as well if you have a family, or if you have a career, you still have to not be one-dimensional. Like parang it was mentioned in the talk na parang, okay, it's okay for a man to be like missing family events because he's bringing home the bacon, and then for women it's not okay. So this double standard, he did a very good job in calling it out, and for me that really increases my respect for anybody who calls that out. And so his wife Ginger actually manages or moderates Lean In Philippines, which sometimes Lois attends. So it's a community of women who are really trying to lean in more at work and also demand more from their life partners to be more attentive at home, with, like, for me, for example, with chores and parenting, like childcare, being more active in that regard, and not just being a passive, like the stereotype is like parang yung tatay does nothing at home, outsource all chores to the children and the wife and the katulong, and that's something na parang a very tactical way. That's one of the first steps for women to be more included in the workforce, and by a direct as a direct consequence, also included in the startup ecosystem.
Interesting, yeah. Yeah, that's a very deep reflection. Yeah, I think that's really something that needs to be done in that aspect, kasi hindi pa siya mainstream philosophy or belief, at least sa Philippines. Yeah, so it's a very big step really na kailangan pang i-take with regard to really being inclusive. Yeah, that's quite some good sharing there. Thank you, Patrick. I hope we get to reflect about that. I'm really, really, really interested and supportive towards that. So maybe next time we can have more discussion about that. Okay, so I will also share an event that I've attended. So another community event that I've attended is by Twala. Actually, noong una akala ko Tiwala. It's called Twala pala. E-government, the making of a paperless smart city. Kasi I'm quite interested then about smart cities. So basically, it's a small panel discussion with Jeffrey Reyes, CEO and co-founder at Twala, and two government officials, Mayor D of Kawayan and Margie Santos of Quezon City Government Department Head at Business Permits and Licensing Department. So sa mga hindi nakakaalam, si Twala, na gusto ko rin sana mag-guest dito sa podcast, is a blockchain way of signing documents. So, paperless kasi imbes na sa sign na yung papel, nasa blockchain na siya. So, kumbaga e-sig, pero yung e-sig is formalized sa blockchain, legalized sa blockchain. It's there in the blockchain, so it cannot be forged. So, ano yung magiging advantage ng blockchain secure digital signatures? As they've said, it's saving the environment kasi less papers, can reduce cost, it's faster, hindi na kailangan maglipat-lipat ng papeles, iikli mga pila, sana, minus red tape, hindi na pa-forge yung mga pirma kasi blockchain secure siya. For those who want to know more about blockchain, let's talk about that in the future. Pero it's basically a way to make transactions secure. Eliminate fixers then. So I think what's very what we can be optimistic about this is that paperless smart city. I really love that idea. And with smart cities and with paperless transactions na digitally secured, kumbaga madali maka-connect from one city to another. Especially Pilipinas, we're an archipelago. Hindi na kailangan maglipat ng papel from QC to Davao or something like that, di ba? Digital na yung transactions and they're secure. So I'm really looking forward to what Twala is trying to build given their technology. So yeah, that's my short sharing. And kung nakikinig ang Twala dito, I hope we can get to guest you in this podcast. Ayan, so that's all for our sharings. Thank you, Andrei, Erwin, Patrick and Lois, and me. And bago pala tayo matapos, meron pa tayong isa pang paikot na ano lang, can you just share like for a closer, ano yung kumbaga parang reflection nyo about the Philippine startup industry? So let's start with Andrei.
Ano naman? Okay. I guess yung key takeaways ko dun sa first dun sa event is it's really super well managed and ang ganda ng mga topics na na-incorporate nila. The theme that you're going beyond. Wait, let me go back to my notes.
Beyond recovery.
Beyond recovery, redefining opportunity. Basically, parang the past 3 years, we've been so exhausted by the pandemic and it's all about bringing up issues, yung lahat ng hardships na na-experience natin, adapting to the new normal. But now, parang they're set up, parang putting their foot down and, we're done being victim, telling the victim story. And now, we should look beyond and see this now as an opportunity to grow even more and improve from the past normal that we were experiencing through these opportunities in the form of startups. So I made it a point na yung mga in-attendan ko na events were parang different in terms of iba yung paggamit nila dun sa current technologies para i-further yung what's normally used now. So like yung sa EdTech na talk, parang it talks about technology not just a tool for learning, but actually a platform that will even expand education as we know it. Komunidad tells us na the data is there, but we can further its use by making it more household and making it more accessible. So it's nice to see that through startups in the Philippines na lalo pa yung mga na-formulate during this time, they're not just looking at ways to solve the problems created by the pandemic, but they're now moving forward from there and seeing opportunities on how we can even better our lives from how it was before. So I'd really like to commend lahat ng mga startup CEOs, founders, na ang ganda yung ginagawa nila. And now we're not just dependent on the government, on the private sector, kasi we have these people who would like to make a purposeful contribution to society kasi nakikita nila yung gap and they're using their personal resources to bridge these gaps. So yun lang. I personally really like to join a startup. And, it's nice na it's a booming industry now. And even students as early as their college, high school days, na-appreciate na nila yung ganong track. And I really wish that a lot more students would pursue that track kasi maganda yung fina-forge nila na way for the future.
Thank you for that, Andrei. And sana dumami rin ang makinig sa startup podcast. Joke lang. Thank you, Andrei. How about you, Erwin? So what's your reflection or outlook sa ating startup industry?
Ayun, ang aking outlook sa startup industry is there's nowhere else to go but up. We are growing, especially now that the economy is opening up. And I think ang dami rin nating learnings dun sa pandemic. Makikita natin may mga resiliency efforts like yung mga businesses na nila i-put up. But yung kasi mga ganun, parang term doon. Parang buy and sell. Parang unlike yung mga yun, itong mga startup kasi they spur innovation talaga. Something that will go beyond survival, something that will be long term. So ayun nga, initially kasi perception sa bansa natin, we are known for our cheap labor, di ba? Wherein we provide the raw materials and we assemble the goods. Pero yung pag-market and pag-sell nun, doon na sa mga ibang bansa. So, pag may startup tayo, I think it's very useful and helpful for the country na sa atin lahat ng aspect na yun, di ba? From the raw materials to the finished product, which will really help the economy and ayun nga, will provide more jobs to people, especially ngayon na napakataas ng unemployment rate due to the pandemic. So ayun, hopefully we see more startups appear and develop through the years. And ayun, very positive ang aking outlook sa startup community since very diverse din yung topics nga natin ngayon. And ayun nga, hopefully magamit din na networking event ng founders and investors yung event na to para ma-bridge yung gap, yung mga funding gaps and all. Ayun.
Yeah, those really are actually yung goals ng Philippine Startup Week 2021. Yeah, so we're really looking forward. Thanks for that, Erwin, Patrick, and Lois.
Ako muna kasi medyo nega yung sasabihin ko. Well, regarding startups, startup founders are really doing their part. And I just want to call out the government and private sector to really invest in the startups. Kasi it's really hard to build your own company. Tapos, yung aabot mo lang talaga, mga niche customers. Tapos yung mga, well, based on our experience na yung government, may specific government na pro-innovation, but most of them still sobrang against technology. I just want to share na yung sister ko, they're developers for government software, and she's experienced na ang dami talagang red tape, as in very bad. And then, sobrang hirap mag-reach out sa mga big corporations for any assistance, kahit na minimal assistance lang, hindi naman sila maglalabas ng pera, just show support, parang ganon. It's still hard. So, I guess I want to say na nandun na yung founders, nandun na yung want ng mga tao to build their own company. Pero kung marami pa rin nagsastop, lalo na yung mga matagal nang andyan, tapos pinipigilan nila yung mga newcomers, mahihirapan talaga tayo mag-boom. So, kailangan nilang mag-step up. Kasi lahat naman tayo aangat. Hindi naman pagka umangat yung mga startups ay babagsak na yung mga companies nila. Lahat tayo aangat doon, lahat tayo magtutulong-tulungan. Tapos, at the same time, mas malaki yung magiging reach ng mga startups. Kasi, as I mentioned kanina, niche pa lang yung nare-reach talaga ng mga startups. Usually, technology. And sino lang ba may technology? Usually, may kaya na rin eh. Tapos, yung mga taong may pinaka nangangailangan ng tulong, hindi sila na aabot kasi hindi pa sila online, mga ganon. So, yun yung gusto ko lang i-point out.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Patrick.
Yeah, I am hopeful. Yung isa sa pinaka things that make a startup founder successful, and the reason I think Lois is can really call out people like this is because a very key trait of founders is resourcefulness, and she's very resourceful. Like, she uses typical things, daily typical things, in manners that are not typical. Like, hindi ko yun maiisip, or hindi yun maiisip ng most people I know. But then she will, like, we were having a conversation yesterday about something unusual she was doing na alam niyang unusual, and it really went against some social norms, pero kailangan eh. And that ability to sort of di ba fish can't see water, the ability to detach yourself and see water as a fish, see the ecosystem as what it is, and call out who are the inadequate, or not who, but what tasks are inadequately performed, and then who can step up to bridge the gap there, as like Erwin was mentioning earlier. Those are the things those are the reasons that I am hopeful na there will be problems, ma-identify natin, tapos as a community we can try to come around and see ano yung magagawa natin for that specific problem, or are there other, it can be a complicated or problem na maraming causes, or a complex problem na parang virtuous cycle or vicious cycle yung nangyayari. Tapos parang kailangan mo talaga i-call out yung mga ganung problem. That's the first step really. And that's really what gives me hope. People who can, like this podcast, where you are able to really discuss with founders Yeah, nakailang episodes ka na? 17?
18 na, 18.
Ito na may 18.
Ay, hindi. Meron kanina.
Yes. So, see, 18 founders, 18 companies that they are able to tell their story. So far, I've listened to like 13, I think. And each of them like really inspire me na-experience ko din yung problem na yan. It's really, it's really gut-wrenching and so forth. Parang, to build the community of founders and to build the community around the founders, like the investors and the customers, most important are the customers. The investors, they just follow the money, and the money is with the customers. And these are things that we are starting to see now na nagkakaroon ng more awareness, and that's why I'm hopeful.
Yeah, I think big word nga rin dito with Philippine Startup Week 2021 is the openness, hopefully, to collaboration and being inclusive, basically. I mean, really tulungan talaga lahat, hopefully. It's a very hard dynamics. I don't want to talk about it here, maybe in the next episode, pero yeah, it's really a long discussion pa. Abangan sa next episode. But I just want to reiterate lang din yung kay Erwin. I really like yung sinabi ni Erwin kasi it also resonates with like how we in the team now started Startup Podcast. Kasi first of all, ano ba ang vision ng Startup Podcast? I really just want to inspire more Filipino entrepreneurs and innovators. Bakit? Kasi araw-araw nag-asawa na ako nakikita na lagi tayong na-exploit somehow ng ibang bansa. And actually for me, hindi ganun kaganda yung napaka-consumerist ng bansa natin. Sabi nga ni Erwin, tayo lang yung gumagawa ng raw materials pero sa atin din binibenta yung final product. So it's weird, di ba? Napaka import-oriented, export-dependent natin. Kung tayo na lang yung gumagawa ng buong product from start, from mining to manufacturing, even to marketing. And kung tayo pa yung nag-export or at least nasusustain natin yung sarili nating ekonomiya at hindi tayo nabubuli somehow ng mga ibang bansa. And I think overall connection din sa job creation na if we have more businesses, if we have more startups na mag-grow talaga into mainstream, that's really how we run this economy and this country. And sasagana ang buhay ng bawat isang Pilipino. Andito ang trabaho, andito ang industriya na tayo mismo ang may-ari. Kumbaga, hindi lang tayo employees. We're entrepreneurs. We own our nation. That's really what I like to see.
Mag-abroad.
Well said.
And yeah, and maybe siguro yun na yung pang-wrap up natin, and maybe that's how we will end this episode. So, thank you, Andrei, Erwin, Patrick, and Lois for sharing about your experiences, reactions, and reflections about Philippine Startup Week 2021 and the Philippine startup ecosystem. So, thank you. Say thank you to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
So,
you.
plug ko lang. So, by the way, for our listeners, you can still rewatch the sessions at their website, www.phstartupweek.com. Just go to the conference, get your tickets, and enable show pass sessions. And i-upload din sa YouTube yung videos ng mga events na diniscuss natin dito. So, you can watch the whole videos there. So, thank you. And I hope you tune in sa ating next episodes. So, thank you ulit, Andrei, Erwin, Patrick, Lois. Thank you very much for sharing and for this discussion. It's a very fruitful discussion. Thank you.